this is going to work, it has to be cost effective, and it must be easy for consumers to use. Now, I can bring up one example that is fairly easy for consumers, although from a security point of view, we know it's not that secure, which is DVDs. DVDs are encrypted, and they limit copying for most users. And when you play a movie, you don't really realize that it's encrypted, and to you it works. And that's what we strive to do with our systems, so that they are reasonably transparent to users who are playing by the rules. Yeah.
I'm going to violate my own rule. The issue with the DVD, of course, is that it limited to people who could buy the license, the huge cost of the license, to know how to do the DVD on disencryption. Mm-hmm. So that was a way to control the market with that thing. So that this poor Norwegian who invented a way to do it by just looking at the thing and figuring it out.
Or so the story goes.
Well, there were some Russians that looked at RSA and figured it out, and they really did it in a clean room, so it's not impossible. And so the story goes, as he did. But let's take it on his word. No one's proved him wrong yet. The problem with all these things is that they have so many ways of limiting access to the market. That's really what a lot of the issue is about.
I think that's one aspect, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Since you play a DVD and your real stream of data is passed through we can play it on a DVD on a computer, for instance.
Notice when you
and on a computer, all you have to do is tee that decoded stream off to somewhere else and record it on it. I mean, you could tee that data stream off with software to somewhere other place, and then if it's unencrypted for the purpose of displaying it, can't you? Wouldn't it be easy for a person to record that again?
It's absolutely possible to do it. I think the idea with most of these systems is to make it so that for most people it'll be more convenient to use it in the intended way than to use these circumventions. Now, if somebody, a 16-year-old Norwegian, breaks the code and writes 5 lines of Perl and posts them so that anyone can download it, then of course it becomes very convenient to use it that way. If I can go to a store and buy a DVD dubbing software, then it becomes really convenient. So that's where this chain of protection breaks down.
Oh, this is just one thought. It kind of gets off a little bit on legal and technical, but if you are going to legislate, for instance, copy protection or this kind of thing, quite often if someone happens to either the disk is damaged or slipped out of the sun or the heat or whatever, and they say, well, wait a minute, where's my data? And then you go to, like for instance, I ordered a new disk from Microsoft. They wanted quite a bit of money. I thought an unfair amount of money for shipping and handling and packaging just a simple CD. If I simply made my own backup copy, I wouldn't have had to go through the hassle. Right. But on the other hand, if I was dishonest, I could loan the spare copy to my friend, So.
Right. Right.
So one thing you can do is ship software with what's called your storage backup copy and the working copy. And you go ahead and issue those things. It doesn't cost but another 50 cents, maybe 75 cents most, to issue that disk, and then you've already given the guy, and say store this in a separate place. This is your backup copy. It saves you from having to reissue one, and put the logo in there. Notice this is not, with a warning, FBI arrest you, put you in prison and everything.
Yeah, what I would say is that, again, this is going more to the political discussion. I'm not sure that it's a good idea to have legislators do system design and software engineering in the same way that I wouldn't want to have to legislate.
We'd probably agree with
So I think there's another answer to what you're asking, which is if there was, a content company that sold their content in the way that you're describing, then if that became a competitive advantage to them, then eventually the market would adopt that model. So I guess this is the free market versus centralized control political discussion again. And I'm going to just kind of
Well, what happens
move on.
what happens when technically people publish content that is not copyrighted? Doesn't that break down this whole vicious string?
Well, if the content is not copyrighted to begin with, say my photos from my last vacation that I want to share with whoever cares to look at them, then I would never protect them, and therefore they're free to download. I wouldn't want to be perceived as advocating that MP3 is bad. I think MP3 is great, and so is MPEG and JPEG. Now, I think that the issue is when you want to distribute content in MP3 format or equivalent, and you want to protect how that content is viewed. For example, say you want to send it so that only your friends can look at it. Then, I would say it's your right to decide who gets to look at it. And it's your right to be very upset at your friends if they post it on the internet for everyone to see. That would be the analogy with this.
I guess what I was thinking of is more as artists publish content, say music for instance, that isn't copyrighted and that can be shared. Eventually, if enough of them do that, it totally breaks down this whole cycle
Right.
that we look at with digital rights management.
Right. And if that's the case, then I think, more power to the artists.
Yeah, just to add to that, I would just add, I think it was Tracy Chapman put a bunch of her music online for free downloads, and her merchandising sales went up 300%. And so the concept of all this control in digital rights management almost impedes the very thing that they're trying to protect, which is growth of markets and increased sales. The biggest failed experiment to date, love them or hate them, was Napster, because that was the most incredible missed opportunity of a marketing machine the internet's probably ever seen.
Yeah. Let's let him move ahead. We've beaten the horse.
Okay. I'm going to go through this a little faster. So the way we started looking at this problem was by thinking, what's the life cycle of content? And again, we're talking about professional content that gets distributed through regular channels. So there's a content creation aspect. There's content management usually on the content owner side, and then there's the distribution, which could be through a variety of means, including broadband. And then it gets to the playback device. What we're seeing is that this story is now extending to where the entry point to the home is like a home gateway of sorts, which then redistributes the content to several devices. For example, an MP3 player or a set-top box or an entertainment system. Now what we did is we looked at this very simple model, and we said, okay, what would be the content protection life cycle as opposed to the content life cycle? So basically we start with key management. The content then becomes encrypted and watermarked, is distributed in protected form, it arrives at the home, and then it plays in a tamper-resistant environment to address some of the concerns that were raised earlier. Now, it doesn't really end there. There's another aspect, which is forensics, because we start with the assumption that whatever we do here, or even up the line, will eventually get hacked. It will be broken. Whatever protection mechanism we build into it will be broken. So there has to be a way to detect that and then to respond so that the cycle can start again and we can renew the notion of security. Now, let me shift gears a little bit and talk about how you would actually make this work in the marketplace. What you really need is the technical means and also an agreement between the parties. The idea is that only compliant players get to render the content. And what I mean by compliant is something slightly different from the usual standards notion of compliance. The standards notion is, you go to a connectivity fest and it works, so now it's compliant and you get the logo. Now, in this case, you need to be able to remain compliant, meaning you need to be able to follow the restrictions that were placed on the content, even if somebody's trying to attack the code or the device. So it's a much higher bar for what compliance is.
Isn't that similar, though, as your example, is locking your car or your house?
How is it similar?
Well, in the sense that it only protects honest people, really.
Yeah.
It protects you against honest people.
I guess my analogy kind of breaks down at one point, which is that now somebody's actually given you something they want to protect. So you have it in your control, and they don't know whether you are honest or not. So the analogy kind of breaks down at that point. But you're right in the sense that if somebody is determined to break the protection, eventually they will succeed. But what the system can do is it can recover from something like that so that it's not a system-wide event. Now, I said that content should only play on compliant devices or I use device in a generic term. It could be a piece of software. So now the content owner needs to trust that a device is compliant and robust. Robust meaning it will try to protect itself against attacks. And of course, this breaks down when it gets compromised. So something we learned from this is that establishing trust is not a one-time event. I trust you, and now I trust you forever to manufacture good devices, because once your devices are out in the field, then they may be compromised, and then I wouldn't want to trust those particular devices. So you need to manage trust over time and over millions of devices. And the way we do that is with cryptography. So I usually have this one slide, the next one, which is like a level set